our families will never fight. That's what we hear. And every time we look at each other and we're like, all right, that's going to be a disaster.
And no one wants to talk about death.
I don't like talking about death. Horrible dealing with death, but yet I'm in this profession. Yeah.
How much it costs when your home goes into probate?
It is essentially 4% of the first 100,000 of the estate, 3% of the next 100,000, 2% of the next 800,000, and then, the sliding scale continues.
Yeah. What's the difference with the will and a trust?
That's where I joke that the movies ruined everybody. It's like
some people say we're gonna have a crash in the real estate market in San Diego. I'm like, that can't happen. Look at all these great restaurants coming.
There's absolutely no way. San Diego's getting more expensive.
The more they educate their clients, the more they are an advisor to the client and continue to be a partner to them beyond just the sale. Ultimately, you want to help them protect those assets that you just helped them purchase. Introduce yourself for us and let us know.
It's like, we started.
Might as well.
Right? Oh, great. Okay, I was like,
more natural.
Okay, right? yes. I like that. As I'm here fixing my hair.
You look great.
Thank you. My name is Chantal Duister. I am a partner of Duisters Parvizi. So it's myself and my best friend we met in law school. We've been doing it now for 12 years. I always tell people when I say that, I age myself so much. So I'm
so young.
On one end, it's great to be we've passed a decade, and then on the other end, I'm like, oh Jesus, time is just flying. But when we started, so my background was insurance defense. I did a lot of construction defect, and I hated it. And I don't like the word hate because I loved the attorneys, but I was just moldy walls and leaks in the floor just aren't doing it for me. I knew in law school I was kind of I want something that I could connect with people. Yeah. It's just my personality. And something that maybe is a little more emotional, not so much fighting. And I was a little naive to, at the time about estate planning. But I loved it. It was not even a required course. It was just an elective. So I took it, and I told Nasaran, who's my business partner, one day I want to open my own law firm, and I want to do wills and trust. And maybe the movie scene and at the time had kind of striked my interest too, someone dies, here's their will. And it ended up not being anything like the movies.
It's not like the movies.
It's not like the movies at all. No. But so we passed the bar, and then I was working, and she said, hey, should we start the firm? I'm like, okay. We weren't married. We didn't have children. And it was kind of what do you have to lose at that point? Yeah. You either go back to a firm, or you are successful and become very happy with your decision. So it's kind of how it all started. She formed everything. So she formed our LLC at the time, all our operating documents. She even worked on our website. She did all the things that I don't enjoy doing.
Yeah.
And then one day I just transitioned from my firm, and we went full force. And obviously it was a building process, but here we are.
It takes time, right?
It takes time. Where you're at. Also, when you start, you're hungry, so you're oh, I'm going to do real estate law, and I'm going to do this law, and I'll take a little bit of this, and I'll do easements, and I'll do trusts, and I'll do that and this and divorce. And you quickly realize you cannot become good at what you do by doing a little bit of everything. Yeah. So we kind of went back to the original, just estate planning and business formations.
And you have to hone in, right, on one specific area to really master it. I think a lot of people try to kind of be good at everything, and then
it doesn't work. I mean, it doesn't work like that for me in my normal day-to-day life. Yeah. And definitely not with estate planning, because there's the laws are ever changing, and you don't really get into the nitty-gritty of how much is involved in estate planning and business formations if you're trying to dip your toe in everything. But when you're starting off and you're trying to make money, and people hear you're an attorney, and everyone, it's probably doctor.
Hey, I need your help.
Yeah. Can you do this? Even now they ask me stuff, and I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do with what I do. I can't pull it out of a hat.
Yeah.
So
I can imagine all your friends can you look at these documents for me? Can
you
do this?
I get, we get random calls, and then I'll get random questions. And, I had someone say can you help me get a wedding ring back from someone that I proposed to? And, we called it off, and can you do small claims for me? Just very random things that God. On some things we could guide them, but I'm it's like doctors, right? If you're
Yeah.
a brain surgeon, that doesn't mean you're a plastic surgeon. It doesn't mean,
You don't know
you're a heart
everything
surgeon.
from that
Yeah.
specialty.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. I met you through like real estate events.
Yes.
So you do a lot of real estate networking and you kind of work a lot with real estate agents. How do you partner with them?
So that came about because the whole idea of estate planning is really to protect your assets for at the time of your passing. And one of the biggest things, especially we were talking before about San Diego and home prices not going down, is your biggest asset aside from like your family and your children is definitely your home. What many people don't realize is if you own a home in California, and it's more similar state-wise now. Just some states are nothing like California is at all. We're a little different on everything. Fortunately and unfortunately sometimes.
We're very unique here.
We are very unique. I'm like, we pay the price for the weather, right? But, estate planning is just one of those things that it's like, you had mentioned these agents help people buy a home, and a home is such a big deal. It's a lifetime of memories. It could be someone going through a divorce, whatever, a move, whatever it might be, your first home purchase. There's so many different things that it entails, but if it stops there, what people don't realize is if you don't protect that asset beyond just the purchase and you pass away, that's going to go through the California probate process. So quickly, realtors would be like, hey, Chantelle, I'm trying to sell a house, but now they're telling me I can't. And I'm like, well, what are the facts? And they're like, well, I'm trying to sign this listing agreement and, the mother died. And I'm like, well, that's why you can't sell. The property is in their name and not in a trust. So we go through the entire court probate process, which is so timely and so expensive.
So if someone doesn't have a trust and they pass away, what happens to that home?
So if they don't, so there's two scenarios. If there's a joint tenant on it, and the joint tenant is surviving, then the house will pass, kind of like a joint bank account. Yeah. The house will pass to the joint owner. It's interesting, and you probably know this, but wording is very important on that property deed because a joint tenant versus tenants in common have a very different result. So if there's a joint tenant and one passes, the survivor gets it, okay? Yeah. In the event that there's not a joint tenant and there's no living trust, what happens is a family member, whomever it might be, cannot sell that property without going through the California probate process. Now, what is California probate? Essentially, without giving too much detail that overwhelms, somebody, usually it's a family member, somebody has to petition the court and say, hey, I'd like to be in charge of my loved one's estate. And the court has to agree and say, okay, we appoint you administrator. At that moment and after that hearing, then that person has control over the overall estate. So if they're approved, that they're given the authority to sell the house on behalf of their loved one. Now, obviously, there's so much more detail. Yeah. It also gets incredibly messy because, we have situations where like a neighbor tries to be the administrator or a family member that people
never had anything to do with them.
That had never had anything to do with them. And it happens. I mean, I like to give real life situations because it kind of like will, turn the light bulb on. But, and this is one of many, but I had a probate of a gentleman who he lived with his girlfriend for 35 years. He was sick. She took care of him. Her son lived with him. They never married. He had a daughter that he had zero relationship with. And to be quite honest, she had made some decisions in life that, kind of separated them. She wasn't good with money and she completely removed herself. But when she found out her dad passed, of course, she's first in line. So she quickly got involved. Everything did go to her, which probably wouldn't have been his wishes had he set up a trust. And his loved one for all those years and his caretaker and her child were displaced. And, black letter law. It's the courts say, hey, if you haven't written down your wishes, we can't get too involved with emotions. All we can say is this is the next person in line to receive, and there's a family tree. It just goes straight down. So,
and I think what's actually, the one that resonates the most, I think, is when people don't come to realize how much it costs when your home goes into probate.
Yes.
Like how much of that equity, let's just say if you're going to sell it later, are you losing because of probate?
So much. So again, I'll give you an example because it's like sets a trigger for everyone to get their estate plan. But there's a set statutory fee we get. So it's great for us attorneys. I will say, like, probates are great. From a financial standpoint, not from an emotional standpoint. But the courts dictate a statutory fee. And what it is essentially is 4% of the first 100,000 of the estate, 3% of the next 100,000, 2% of the next 800,000, and then, the sliding scale continues. Now, what people don't realize is this is inclusive of debt. So clients will call and they'll say, hey, my mom died. She had $1 million house, but she owes 900,000. And then she had a checking account for 50,000. And then she had a vehicle for 20. And all those assets, once probate starts, is included in the estate. So recently there was a probate that we are now wrapping up because they take so long. But the house was worth $780,000. There was about $500 owed on the house, and the statutory fees. And it was just a house in this situation, but the statutory fees are $18,600. And when I say that, that's just for the attorney. The individual, whether it be the son, the friend, the spouse, whomever it might be, by law, they're entitled to a matching statutory fee. So they get, very, I think,
like
37,200, I believe. I mean, I went to law school because I'm not the best at math, but again, an estate plan can cost someone anywhere between like $2,000 to $6,000 for basic, depending on the situation. And then obviously, more planning costs more and more money, but you factor that fee compared to probate.
Yeah.
And it's like, why wouldn't you?
It's a no-brainer.
It's a no-brainer.
Sure. When you put it that way, it's like you're going to be losing more money later, and putting your family or whoever's left over through this whole drawn-out process where they can't really make any decisions until probate's done.
Right. They can't do anything. I mean, even us attorneys, we can't do anything. We don't get paid till the very end. Yeah. It's just a very sad situation to experience. So my business partner, she handles our trust admins, which is when someone passes away and did have their assets in trust. And, they need their trust distributed. And then she does our business formations, and then we kind of split up trusts. I handle all the probates, and some of the situations are straightforward, but most of the time you're dealing with emotions, money, greed.
Yeah.
And when dealing with those emotions and dealing with family dynamics, and everyone who says, like, we have this running joke that it's like, our families will never fight. That's what we hear. And every time we look at each other and we're like, all right, that's going to be a disaster. And it's without fail, the ones who swear, like,
we're never going to fight over money.
Yeah.
And of course, it becomes.
Even over very, very little things. So my whole thought process behind this is if enough people are educated on what an estate plan actually is, it is a no-brainer. Like you said, you can change it throughout your life. It's emotional for people. They're like, wait, I'm planning for my demise. And, that's a hard thing.
Well, even talking about it, and because I've done my trusts before, and just talking about like, okay, so what happens if you pass? And then what happens when the person you assign passes? And what about when that person passes?
The plane crash scenario.
The plane crash, yes.
Yeah.
You guys are all on the plane together. And you're just like, I don't want to think about that. No one wants to think about that.
No.
But it's important.
It's so important, and it's like nobody does unless it's happened to them, right? Yeah. And then they're like the best clients because they're like, I don't want to go through what I already went through.
Yeah.
I had, I used one time I was like talking to a client and I'm like, oh yeah, the plane crash scenario. And he's like, well, I'm a pilot. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. He's like, no, we actually use that term too, but it's hard. And then when you throw little children into the mix and, one child's like this, one child's like that, or, couples start fighting over, well, if we die, my parents are going to, be the guardians, and no, my parents or my sister. And it's hard to make these decisions, but it's either like you make the decisions or the courts make the decisions for you.
We have no idea about anything in your family or any of your history. So who are they to say that they're going to get it right?
No, and the craziest part is, my sister's a family law attorney, and then I obviously do estate planning, and you think, like, there's a law, right? Like there's a law. Everything's going to go like this. And this is how Judge A and Judge B and Judge C and Judge D are going to rule on a matter. And it's nothing like that.
Yeah.
Time and time again, you're like, oh my God, how did you rule that decision or make this person in charge or grant something? And it's why there's two sides to it always. So it's not a good thing to leave in the hands of others.
Definitely not. I always tell my real estate agents that they need to partner with a trust attorney so that way they can, continue to provide education to their clients. And how do you think that agents should connect with you or partner with you to do that?
I think that something that's been very helpful are seminars.
Yeah.
Just bringing in someone of any profession. It could be someone who does life insurance, an estate planning attorney, and, offering to your clients a seminar on why it's important. I think we all have a tendency, I do it too, is when you hear stuff from other people, let's say it's about 401ks or, you're like, yeah, I don't need it. What are you trying to sell me? I'm fine. I don't need it. But then when you actually realize and you learn and you do your own research separate from that. So I think just, my biggest thing, anytime a realtor asks me, will you speak or can you hop on an Instagram live, whatever it is, I'm happy to do it. I think that's the best way they can.
I think it's great because I think the more they educate their clients, the more they are an advisor to the client and continue to be a partner to them beyond just the sale. And ultimately, you want to help them protect those assets that you just helped them purchase.
Absolutely. And I think, to offer that and say, I'm of such value that it's not done here. And even in my profession, but for realtors, yes, it is a transaction at the end of the day, but it's a really big transaction in terms of your life. Whether you're spending $200,000 or $15 million, it's a transaction of life. And to just disappear and not offer, the ability to say, hey, here's where you go from now. I can offer you resources. I can offer you education. It's invaluable. I feel like people need that hand-holding. They really do.
And it'll take time. I think I went to 3 trust seminars before I decided to pull the trigger. I'm like, all right, I hear it. I need to do it. Yeah. Because, again, we all think, okay, well, we have time. It's fine. I don't need to do it yet. But you just don't know.
I mean, I laugh, but, I'm an estate planning attorney. Yeah. I've been doing this now 12 years. And I've been telling my parents for the longest time, you need to do this. And there's a joke. And my dad's like, well, you know how to do probate. So if something happens to someone, no, I don't want to go through that. So just recently we went to dinner, him and I, and him and my mom are going to Europe for the first time without all of us this summer. Usually it's all of us. So the plane crash, as sad as it is, we're kind of well, if we're all together, and there's nobody left.
Donate it to charity.
Yeah. I mean, what are we going to do? But this summer they're going alone. And so we went to dinner and, he's like, hey, I have a question. And the question started.
Oh, yeah.
And it was kind of refreshing because I'm like, okay, now are you ready to, put your home into a trust? If your other assets we could talk about, but it's not just it took me a while to do. Yeah. It's a hard thing to wrap your head around and to sit down and do.
Well, you're thinking about what happens when you die, and no one wants to talk about death.
No. I don't like talking about death. I'm horrible dealing with death, but yet I'm in this profession. Yeah. I'm probably emotional wise the worst person when it comes to dealing with death, but simultaneously, I think that's why I know it's so important.
Yeah.
You're dealing with something that, if it's a loved one and you didn't hate each other, you're dealing with something that is probably the most emotional time in your life. And the last thing you want to do is wrap your head around. Now what? We have to go to court?
Yeah, to figure out where what belongs to me is going,
I get a speeding ticket, I freak out. I'm like, oh no, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
Cell phone ticket. And then now it's people who have lost a loved one who are in shambles. And then they're just the account, the cars, the house. On the real estate side, I'm sure you deal with this so much, but there's this whole other aspect of clients who have investment properties and LLCs. And how have they planned, to protect those properly?
Yeah. And it's putting them all in the trust, together.
Yeah.
Most people think, it's okay, I have a will. What's the difference with the will and a trust?
That's where like I joke that like the movies ruined everybody. You know, it's like they left their will and this goes to you and you're disinherited and the new spouse is getting everything, you know, the Lifetime movies. So huge misconception. We don't even, for the most part, we won't even draft a will anymore, especially in California. They do suffice in some other states. And like in Europe, sometimes they're called a will. But here, what people don't understand is you cannot actually retitle an asset to a will. So you have a will, and it says like, I, Chantal Duisters, leave everything to my nephew and niece, for example. Yeah. And then I have these assets and I die. Well, it's like beautiful. It's going to go eventually to my nephew and niece. Yeah. But what's going to happen is it's going to go through probate because that asset was still in my own name. Whereas with a trust, we actually retitle and record the house. So, you know, buyer purchases house in their name. We take that now and we say, okay, it's in buyer's name and now gets recorded into the name as a transfer to the trust. Yeah. There's no property reassessment when this occurs because it's equal ownership. And then when they pass and you pull the property deed, it is actually in the trust name, whereas a will, it's not. And so you will go through probate. It's the same time. It's the same cost. The only difference that I tell people is the courts, instead of dictating, hey, family tree, you know, wife, kids, versus like the example I gave that I said everything would go to my nephew and niece. So they'll abide by the will's wishes if it's deemed a valid will, and they won't go by like their automatic family tree. But it'll still be the same time and cost. Yeah. So there's no point.
You're not avoiding any of the real pain.
You literally have a petition for probate or you have a petition for probate with the will annexed or attached. That's the only difference. So it's like, no, don't do that.
Don't do that. No.
No, don't do that. Bad. Yeah. Very bad.
So you want to trust.
Yes.
Yes. So how can people reach out to you to connect and talk about whether it's partnering on a seminar or connecting you to their clients or even just talking to you about getting their clients, you know, in a trust.
Yeah, absolutely. So our phone number is 619-375-0077. I always get confused when I say our law firm, but it's dplawca.com. We're on Instagram as well, Duisters Parvizi. We're pretty responsive. So it's important. And we're, you know, I tell agents, I'm like, hey, if you just want to shoot us texts and just have questions or want us to review something for you, we're happy to do that.
I love that. That's so helpful because everyone always thinks like attorney and it's like so scary. I know. And just some evil man over there that doesn't want to answer the phone.
I laugh all the time because I'm like the goofiest person ever. And so it's like when people think attorney or I'm like, you know, outside of work, they're like, you're an attorney? And I'm like, you would never. It's not. Maybe like, again, the movies are like go back 20 years and I still run into some attorneys that I'm like, oh gosh,
you're one of those.
You're one of those. You're one of those. But it's not like that at all. And it shouldn't be like that. Yeah. We're all in it together to kind of like.
You want to help.
Yes.
And it's already a scary enough topic. So it's something that you want to almost make it more comfortable and easy on people as much as you can, right?
I say like with buying a home, right? Like, you know, like when you deal with these agents and you're telling them, I want this for this reason and I'm looking for this in a house. And like, it's not something that should be scary. It should be something that is somewhat not enjoyable, but the process should be pleasant.
It should be exciting
too.
It's a big investment.
So
we should help them secure these investments after the purchase.
Absolutely. Sure. But then again, I'm happy to help them with their probates too. I'm like, if you haven't done it. But no, they can reach us however they like. Like I said, we're incredibly responsive. We don't like, you know, someone just kind of like having to like guess the answer. So I much rather someone just say, hey, Chantal, can you call me real quick? And
question actually that just came up. Does the court appoint you as a probate attorney or does someone hire you as a probate attorney?
That's a very good question. So usually there are court-appointed attorneys and fiduciaries, but usually it's someone calling me. Okay. A lot of times it's agents. Okay. Because someone will call an agent and say, I want to sell my loved one's house. And they hit the roadblock that they can't. So a lot of times the agent will call me and say, what do I do? Because probate's a different beast. Yeah. And then I'll talk to them, I'll talk to their client, and then I will work with the client and to make sure also that the agent can help them throughout that. You know, I know one thing that, and I'm not a fan of this, is like if a lead comes your way, you don't want to be like, okay, well, I got the probate, but now let me give you a different agent. Like the agent brought it. You don't want to do that. No, it's not a good thing to do, and it shouldn't be done. And unfortunately, there's, you know, people who do things that aren't. That's life. That's
Definitely.
That's different professions. But so yeah, for the most part, it's that. Sometimes it's just a matter of someone getting a referral or being on Yelp, and you know, sometimes it's not even a house.
Yeah.
But it's like, hey, I lost my loved one. So
if anyone comes across, you know, a client that potentially lost their loved one and wants to sell a house, they can call you if they're going to be going into probate.
Absolutely. And again, even if they just have questions, I really like to help when I can.
Now, can we go back to talking about food?
Yes, please. Like
about food now?
I'm like the important things.
Important
the
stuff.
important
I
things.
love sitting with foodies. So
Yeah.
it's my favorite.
Well, it's like my favorite thing to do. I had a friend who said, you know, I just like, I don't, I laugh because I'm like, how does that happen? She's like, I never crave food. Like I never want food. I'm like, what do you mean?
What's wrong with you?
Like
psychopaths.
Yes. I wake up and it's like, okay, when do I get to have my coffee? Then what am I having for breakfast? And then what's for lunch? And then at lunchtime, it's like, oh, what do I want to eat for dinner? You know, or what cool restaurant? And I don't understand it.
What's your favorite restaurant in San Diego right now?
Oh man, I don't know if I have a favorite, but my favorite cuisine is Mexican food. That's why I was asking you about that new restaurant.
Oh yeah, it's so good.
I obviously am a sucker for Javier's. I think it's like overpriced, great Mexican food. It's good salsa, good margaritas.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with salsa and margaritas.
You can't go wrong with that. And I'm Italian, so I don't usually eat Italian food out that often. Because
do you cook a lot?
I try to. I you know, if I have the time or something quick. But like my favorite thing when people are like, what are your hobbies?
Eat.
1,000%. Yeah. I'm like, I like to go try new restaurants and have good food and good drinks. Like that's my hobby.
That's the best part.
It's my Friday and Saturday and Sunday hobby.
New restaurant. And we're getting so much good food now in San Diego,
I know.
Finally.
It's like,
I'm excited about that.
I'm so excited. I'm like, we're stepping it up because for so long I'm like New York and LA and Las Vegas and for food, have it like dialed in, and we were kind of behind.
My husband moved out here, and when we first started dating, he would tell me how terrible the food was here, and I'm like, what are you talking about? We have great food. And he took me to Seattle. I'm like, oh, okay, I get what you're saying. There's a lot better food here. Yeah. The fish is a lot fresher. I get it. Yeah. And then now he's actually even saying, he's like, you know what, San Diego's stepping it up, so it's good.
No, we definitely are. I mean, like we were saying, San Diego's just getting better and better, and
so much good food.
We have so much good food. We have great weather. I'm like, what don't we have here? It's so hard to leave here.
Some people say we're gonna have a crash in the real estate market in San Diego. I'm like, that can't happen. Look at all these great restaurants coming.
Someone told me that the other day. They're like, be ready. Last week, 2 people, and I was like, well, on like an investor side, I wouldn't mind it, you know. Yeah. As like a purchaser, I wouldn't mind that. But I mean, there's absolutely no way. San Diego's getting more expensive. My sister, yesterday, I was with her and she showed me a home in Vista, and it's for sale for 1.9, and it's like just this like
basic.
It's cool. It has a pool. It's cool, but it's basic, right? Yeah. And it's Vista. It's not. It's not La Jolla. It's not Del Mar. Yeah. And I'm like, I don't think anything's changing anytime soon.
I think we're just like the anomaly here in San Diego, right? Because we have the good weather. We have it's still beautiful. There's still a lot of people wanting to move here. And now we're getting good restaurants. Yes. Or a lot of big name restaurants are coming to San Diego. So I feel like that also tells you something, right?
I just came back from Cabo and I stayed at the Nobu.
Oh, yeah.
So you saying that we're getting Nobu, and I'm like, wow, we're really, you know, we're bringing in all these like big names.
Because we have Nobu. But we're gonna.
Oh yeah, we do in downtown, but I don't really love that one.
The location's
in the Hard Rock.
Weird. Yeah. But now we're gonna get Nobu at the Hotel Del, which is going to be probably like the better upscale Nobu. So
the ocean like
May
views.
2nd, we should try to go.
Yeah, Hotel Del's great too. Yeah, actually.
A great place. I was there for date night last night.
I thought I saw that. They've like redone it. It's the best Christmas there. It's like
now that it's actually the whole front now is like fixed up. They're still working on some like construction in some areas, but now just like the face of it it's gorgeous.
It's so
the rooms
pretty,
so nice, and
the music and just like walking distance. Even like I'm up in Vista, and Oceanside has. I mean, Carlsbad's great.
Carlsbad has good food. Oceanside is getting really good food too, and Encinitas is getting really good food. I just don't go up there as much.
That's the thing, right? Yeah. Like it's the drive, but like State Street Carlsbad's incredible now. And then all like Oceanside, like the new hotels and the restaurants, it's getting amazing. I'm like, they're cleaning everything up. So
I'm getting hungry at lunchtime.
I know, me too. I'm like, where do I want to sit and have drinks and eat today, you know?
Where you live up in North County?
I live in North County,
okay.
So it's been really nice to like get some places up there.
Yeah, new spots. The Mission Pacific is really cool.
So cool.
Love that spot.
So cool. I used to like hang out in high school in Oceanside, and it was like really run down. Like that was the beach we'd go to, and there was a fence on the wall. And one time this police officer was like, we have the fence on this wall on the beach so that like gang members can't sit and hang on the fence. I was like, oh, this is probably the wrong beach to be going to in a high school. You know, I was like, really? But like now it's like completely clean. So
beautiful out there. I love going out there. I try to go out there as much as I can, but it's just sometimes it's far. Yeah.
Well, it's like that restaurant I asked you about that opened on Park Boulevard, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, God, I want to go. It's just, if I'm not down here.
Yeah, Origin.
It's so far.
So good.
Yeah, it's so pretty too.
The drinks were really good.
Yeah.
Really good drinks.
I'm like, I'm always like hesitant because I'm like, is this just pretty on Instagram or is it really good? But I read the reviews were incredible.
I'm like not like a sweet drink person. I don't really like like mixed drinks. So like I went to Layla. I don't like the cocktails.
I haven't been there yet.
So like when they're trying to do too much with cocktails sometimes, and that is a CH thing, unfortunately, they overdo the cocktails. And this place was like, you could just tell the ingredients were not like overdone.
10 syrups.
Very light.
And
very good. Yeah.
I'm like you. I'm not like a big sweet drink lover at all. Yeah, but like even Layla, I haven't gone. It looks stunning.
It's beautiful.
Looks like you're in Disneyland.
Yeah. You're not in San Diego in there.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous. It's a great place. Food is really good. Just have like a regular cocktail.
Like a normal drink?
Yeah. Yeah. Just not.
Like don't try to be like Disneyland and throw in everything and make it over the.
Like some of the drinks have these, I don't know if it's Persian or what it is, but it's like whatever the Persian spices in there. And I'm like, you don't need to do that in an alcoholic beverage. Let's not do that.
And then your plate comes and it has so many spices and you're like, these two together?
Yeah,
like,
it's just a lot.
It's a little too much. It's too overpowering. I'll have to go there.
But it's good. It's worth it.
It's worth it, the ambiance, right? Like it's like, it's so pretty.
Definitely worth a check out. I mean, I feel like people are it's still not, there's no reservations available.
I know.
Still. You have to, so this is the trick. You have to go, if you're awake at midnight, which I'm never awake at midnight, you have to go on at midnight to book for 30 days out at midnight.
Yeah, I'm definitely not ever awake at midnight unless like I had to wake up for something. But I always wonder, like, do these restaurants do that as like the demand to make it seem really popular?
It's always booked. I
don't
know. It really is.
I've tried.
Still is, yeah.
But then someone told me, like, if you just go at like 5 when they open, you get a table.
You get a table, yeah.
So I'm like, oh, how does that work? You know?
They probably leave some open for walk-ins too.
I feel
you can sit at the bar.
I feel like it's like the like the LA scene, like where you have to go and it's like
exclusive.
So yeah, you can't get in, like no reservations.
You're like it's fucking empty in here.
Yeah,
what?
Exactly. So many times I go, what do you mean we can't get a table? Like there's like 10 empty. You know, it's just that like the hype, but.
Well, we're going to have to go out to eat soon.
Yes,
because
we have a lot of places.
Yeah, we have some places to catch up on. I love it.
We'll do like some in downtown and then some up north.
Yeah, I'll have to come out there. And
we'll do like
take me to your favorite place.
Yeah, we won't go way north, but like we'll do Encinitas.
I'm in. Let's do it. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. This was fun.
You're awesome.
Thank you.
Hopefully some people will call you from
Yes, absolutely.
Love it.
Thank you.